Hi, everyone. For my final project, I'm analyzing a personal essay titled Breaking Free from the Male Gaze, Reclaiming Self-Worth from an Exotic Dancer's Perspective. This piece explores how identity, power, and authority intersect with erotic labor and how self-definition becomes a rhetorical act. The artifact is the January 2025 Medium article written under the name Always Written. It's a first person narrative reflecting on working as an exotic dancer and the confronting of internalized influence of the male gaze. This essay isn't just personal reflection, it's public persuasion. The writer is a self identified exotic dancer speaking from lived experience. Her identity is central to the message. She does not speak as a scholar or policymaker. She speaks as someone whose body and labor are directly implicated in the issue. That identity becomes her authority. The audience is broad: medium readers, feminists, critics of sex work, and general readers shaped by cultural assumptions about women and erotic labor. She writes knowing readers may already hold judgments, so her tone balances vulnerability with reflection. She anticipates resistance. The exigence is cultural conditioning, specifically the male gaze and its influence on how women measure their value. The constraints include stigma towards exotic dancers and deeply rooted gender norms. Her purpose is not just to share her story, but to reframe worth outside the male validation. Identity. Identity is not fixed, it's constructed through discourse. In this essay, the author reconstructs her identity publicly. She moves from being defined by external gaze to defining herself internally. That shift is rhetorical, it's persuasion through self definition. Identity in action. Throughout the essay, she reflects on how her sense of worth was shaped by being looked at, evaluated, and desired. She acknowledges complicity in that system, but she also narrates growth. The act of naming the conditioning becomes her resistance. Authority isn't just about titles or credentials, it can also come from lived experience. Here, the author claims authority throughout embodiment. She positions herself as someone who understands the gaze from the inside. Her authority comes from experience, not institution. Authority and marginalization. However, her authority is complicated. Exotic dancers are often dismissed as lacking credibility, so she must construct ethos carefully, reflective, thoughtful, and self aware. She establishes seriousness to counter cultural stereotypes. Social power. Social power shapes who gets to define meaning. The male gaze represents a form of social power. It determines what is valued, what is desirable, and what is visible, and sometimes that includes who. It shapes perception before women even speak. The male gaze as constraint. In this essay, the male gaze functions as both economic reality and psychological pressure. It influences labor, income, and validation. It becomes internalized. That internalization shows how power operates subtly, not just externally. Audience adaptation. The author adapts to her audience by acknowledging common narratives about female empowerment. She doesn't romanticize the work. Instead, she complicates it. This makes her argument more credible and less defensive. Remember when you were little and everyone told you to just be yourself? Instead of statistics, she uses narrative. Personal storytelling builds emotional resonance. It invites readers to reflect rather than debate. Narrative becomes her primary persuasive strategy. Reframing empowerment. The essay challenges the binary of empowered versus exploited. She suggests both can exist at once. This layered framing resists simplistic cultural narratives, and that complexity strengthens her rhetorical impact. Publishing on Medium turns private reflection into public discourse. The platform becomes a civic space. She participates in shaping cultural conversations about gender, labor, and self worth. This is civic engagement through rhetoric. Identity as resistance. By redefining herself outside of male validation, she disrupts dominant scripts. She shifts from object to author. That shift is rhetorical agency within itself. She takes control of her own personal narrative. Limitations. Though the essay focuses on individual growth, it does not deeply address systemic policy or labor reform. Its strength is personal transformation, but its scope remains individual. That's a rhetorical choice. The male gaze extends beyond strip clubs. It appears in social media, workplaces, and even classrooms. This essay invites broader reflection on how all women may internalize evaluation. Its message reaches beyond just one profession. Why this matters. This artifact shows how identity can become authority. It demonstrates how social power shapes self perception, and it reminds us that reclaiming identity can also be a political act. Language becomes liberation. In closing, this essay argues that worth should not be measured by external validation. By publicly reclaiming her identity, the author challenges cultural power structures. Her story becomes more than just personal, it becomes rhetorical resistance.